The most devastating betrayals never start with a scream. They start with a polite question, delivered over a cooling cup of coffee on a perfectly normal Tuesday. "So, I've been thinking about something," Alex said, swirling the last of his drink in a ceramic mug I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago. I looked up from my laptop, smiling. We were at his kitchen table, a space as familiar to me as my own. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, striping the hardwood floor. It was comfortable. It was our normal. For 3 years, normal had been my sanctuary. Before Alex, I had spent 8 years meticulously building a life for myself, brick by brick. 8 years of blissful, uncomplicated solitude. I hadn't been lonely. I had been free. My career was stable, my apartment was my own, and my peace was non-negotiable. I didn't need a man. I had finally met Alex at 34 and let him into my life precisely because he felt like an addition, not a solution. He was independent, kind, and respected the boundaries of the life I had built. Our relationship was healthy, a calm harbor after a long, quiet, and perfectly pleasant voyage alone. I loved spending time with him. I had no complaints, truly, until that Tuesday. "What's up?" I asked, closing my laptop slowly. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared into his mug as if it held the answers to the universe. "I've been doing some reading. Thinking about us, about our dynamic." A small, cold knot formed in my stomach. "Okay, and I think," he said, finally looking up, his expression painfully earnest, "that I want to open the relationship." The sunlight on the floor seemed to freeze. The hum of the refrigerator suddenly sounded like a roar. He didn't say a relationship. He said the relationship. Ours. "Open it," I repeated, the words feeling foreign and metallic in my mouth. What does that mean, Alex?" "I mean," he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping into that smooth, reasonable tone he used when explaining a complex work problem, "that we'd be free to see other people. Go on dates, sleep with other people." He rushed the last part out, then quickly added, "Both of us, of course. You could go on dates and sleep with other men too. It's about honesty, about evolving." I stared at him. The man I had trusted, the man who had represented safety and stability for 3 years, had just politely asked for permission to sleep with other women. The harbor I had docked in was, it turned out, just a suggestion. And I felt the sudden, terrifying lurch of the tide pulling me back out to sea. To understand the chill of that moment, you have to understand the warmth that came before it. Those 8 years I spent single weren't a barren desert. They were a lush, quiet garden I had cultivated just for myself. I'd had my heart broken badly in my 20s and had sworn off the kind of drama that left you weeping on your bathroom floor at 3 a.m. I built a career. I traveled alone. I learned to be my own best company. When Alex came along, I was skeptical. He was 34, same as me, with a solid job in finance and a quiet confidence I found attractive. He pursued me gently, consistently. He never crowded me. He respected my space, my schedule, and my hard-won independence. Our relationship wasn't a fiery explosion. It was the slow, steady warmth of a fireplace. We lived apart, a decision we both cherished. My apartment was my sanctuary, filled with my books, my art, and my rules. His was his. We'd spend 3 or 4 nights a week together, cooking, watching documentaries, or just sitting in comfortable silence. It was, I told my friends many times, the healthiest relationship I'd ever known. There was no jealousy, no codependency, no fighting, or so I'd believed. Looking back, the signs were there, so subtle I'd dismissed them as static. For the last month or two before his question, he'd been a little distant. He'd mention a new colleague, a younger woman in his department, with just a little too much casualness. "Chloe's brilliant," he'd said one night over dinner. "Just transferred from the London office, really shaking things up." "That's great," I'd murmured, focused on the pasta I was making. "Yeah, she's really something, very ambitious." I'd registered the note of admiration, but I hadn't registered it as a threat. Why would I? I was 37. I was a confident, independent woman in a stable relationship with a man who loved me. I was past the point of analyzing every female name a partner mentioned. I had foolishly believed we were past that. The tension wasn't an overt crack, it was a hairline fracture, invisible to the naked eye. He'd been a little more critical, a comment about the music I was playing. A sigh when I said I was too tired to go out. Little things, little dismissals I'd brushed off as the normal friction of a long-term relationship. But the real bond, the one I thought we had, was built on trust. He was the one person I had let into my carefully constructed peace. I trusted his words. I trusted his intentions. I trusted that his respect for me was as deep as my respect for him. That was the foundation he had just taken a sledgehammer to. And as I sat at his kitchen table, watching the man I loved to talk about evolving, I realized that the warmth I'd felt for 3 years might have just been the glow of a slowly incubating fire, one he had set himself, designed to burn down the entire house. The silence in his kitchen stretched for a full minute. I was processing. The first emotion wasn't anger or even sadness. It was a profound, almost academic confusion. "Why?" I finally asked. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. "It's not about you," he said immediately, the classic, cowardly preamble. "I love you. I love this. But don't you ever wonder, don't you ever miss that new feeling? We're 37. We're not dead. This isn't about replacing you. It's about adding to us." He was spinning it so beautifully. He made it sound like an adventure, a mature, progressive step for two secure, modern adults. He wasn't a man bored with his girlfriend. He was a philosopher. "I've never been in a dynamic like this," I said flatly, "so I have a lot of questions." And I did. For the next hour, I grilled him. What were the rules? How would this work? What if one of us got attached? He had an answer for everything. He'd clearly done his research. "It's just physical," he assured me. "Like a hobby, it doesn't touch what we have. What we have is the core." "And you're okay with me sleeping with other men?" I asked, testing the words. The very idea felt bizarre, almost laughable. "Absolutely," he said, perhaps a little too quickly. "That's the whole point. It's equal, it's fair. You'd probably have a line out the door." He smiled, a reassuring, loving smile. "It was a lie, I see that now. It was a performance." Then he laid down the most important rule, the one that in retrospect was the entire key to his plan. "The only thing is, I don't think we should discuss it," he said, framing it as a kindness. "I don't want to hear about the men you're with, and I don't want you to have to hear about the women I'm with. What we have is separate, protected. What we do outside is just noise. We don't bring it home. No, don't ask, don't tell, just don't tell." He was building a soundproof room for his secrets. I told him I needed time to think. That night, I went home to my apartment, my sanctuary, and it felt different. It felt like the one place he couldn't taint. I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, and as I had promised, I did my research. I read articles on ethical non-monogamy. I read forums. I read stories from people who made it work and stories from people it had destroyed. I thought about my 8 years of being single. I wasn't afraid of other men. I wasn't afraid of being alone. What I was afraid of was losing the healthy thing I'd finally found. After a week of intense thought, I came to a decision. It was a strange, hybrid conclusion. Part of me was terrified. But another, smaller, quieter part of me, the part that had been single for 8 years, was curious. I went back to him. "Okay," I said, "I'll agree on one condition." He lit up, his relief palpable. "Anything? You told me that if at any point I'm not comfortable, if this stops feeling right for me, we stop. We close the relationship. No questions, no arguments. We just stop." "Absolutely," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Of course, your comfort is the most important thing, I promise." He held me, and for a moment I felt the old warmth. I mistook his relief for love. I didn't realize I had just agreed to the terms of my own betrayal. I had agreed to the rules of a game he had already rigged. The first few weeks were weird. Alex and I continued our normal routine, but there was a new, unspoken static in the air. He seemed lighter, more cheerful. I felt anxious. He had given me a freedom I had never asked for, and it felt like a burden. Then one night, sitting alone in my apartment, I opened the App Store. I downloaded a popular dating app, the one everyone talked about. I set up a profile. I was honest, in an open relationship, seeking something non-committal and respectful. I put my phone down and went to bed, my heart hammering. When I woke up, my phone was almost vibrating off the nightstand. I had 500 plus likes. 500. I stared at the number, dumbfounded. After 8 years of solitude and 3 years of comfortable monogamy, it was like turning on a faucet I didn't even know existed. I scrolled through the faces, the messages. They were from everyone: lawyers, artists, a college professor, a guy who was also in an open relationship. My skepticism began to melt, replaced by a cautious curiosity. I started texting a few of them. It was fun. The conversations were light, flirtatious, and blessedly free of pressure. A week later, I went on my first date. He was a graphic designer named Ben. We met for drinks. It was awkward for about 10 minutes, and then it was just nice. We talked about art, about travel. At the end of the night, he gave me a chaste hug and said, "This was lovely. I'd like to do it again." And just like that, the fear was gone. Over the next 6 months, I settled into a new rhythm. I still saw Alex 3 times a week. Our time was still our time. But on my off nights, I was building a small, separate social life. I went on average, 1 or 2 new dates a month. I found 2 other people, Ben, the designer, and another man, Mark, who was in a similar open dynamic, who became regular, friendly, and respectful partners. There was no drama, no jealousy, no commitment. It was exactly the kind of low-stakes connection I had thrived on during my single years. The most shocking part, I was enjoying it. I had been so defined by my healthy relationship with Alex, I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed my own company and the company of new people. I felt a surge of the same independence I'd cultivated for 8 years. I felt desirable, I felt powerful, and as per our one major rule, I didn't say a single word of it to Alex. Meanwhile, Alex seemed frustrated. The lightness he'd had when I first agreed was gone. He was moody, quiet. He'd complain vaguely about work, about being tired. I assumed his own adventures weren't as thrilling as he'd imagined. I didn't ask. We had a rule. The breaking point wasn't a slow erosion. It was an explosion. I was at his house. We were making dinner. I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter, charging. I was chopping onions when a notification lit up the screen. A new message from Ben. Alex saw it. His head snapped toward the phone. "Who's Ben?" I froze, knife in hand. "Alex, we agreed. We don't talk about this." "Who is he?" he repeated, his voice low and hard. "He's someone I'm seeing," I said, trying to remain calm. "Like we agreed, someone you're seeing." Before I could react, he lunged for the phone. He snatched it off the counter and jabbed his thumb on the screen. He didn't know my passcode. "Give me the code," he demanded. "Alex, no. You have no right. Give me the code or I'll throw this against the wall." My blood ran cold. This was not the man I knew. This was a stranger, a red-faced, trembling, furious stranger. Shaking, I told him the code. For the next 10 minutes, I stood in his kitchen, silent, my hands smelling of onions, and watched the man I loved violate every boundary of trust we had ever built. He didn't just read the message from Ben. He went through everything. He opened my dating app. He scrolled through my matches. He read my messages with Mark. He went into my text threads, my call log, my photo album. His breathing grew heavier, more ragged. He looked like a man watching his own house burn down. To say he was angry was a profound understatement. He was apoplectic. "How many?" he finally spat, his face pale, his eyes bulging. "How many men have you been sleeping with?" "That is none of your business," I said, my voice shaking with a new emotion, not fear, but a cold, hard rage. "You wanted this, Alex. You set these rules. You don't get to be angry. Don't get to be angry," he roared, and he threw my phone. It hit the cabinet and clattered to the floor, the screen shattering. "You've been sleeping with half the city. I've been on a few dates. Something you begged me to let you do. I didn't mean like this," he yelled, gesturing wildly at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. And that's when the dam of his composure finally, spectacularly, broke. He was pacing, breathing hard, running his hands through his hair. He looked trapped. He looked pathetic. "This wasn't how it was supposed to work," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "How was it supposed to work, Alex?" I asked, my voice deadly quiet. "Tell me, explain the version of this where you don't look like a raging hypocrite." He stopped pacing. He looked at me and all the performative anger drained away, leaving something hollow and ugly beneath. He looked guilty. He swallowed. "It wasn't for me, not really." "What does that mean?" He slumped against the counter, the same counter where he'd held my hand just an hour earlier. He wouldn't look at me. "It was for Chloe," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The name, the brilliant colleague, the ambitious one from the London office. The chill I'd felt in his kitchen 6 months ago returned, a sudden icy plunge. "I don't understand," I said. I have feelings for her," he confessed. The words hung in the air, thick and toxic. "I have for months. I needed to see if it could work with her." I just stared. I couldn't form a thought. My mind was a blank white screen. He kept talking, the confession tumbling out of him now, a torrent of pathetic truth. I thought if I could take her on a date, a real date, I could see if she felt the same way. But I couldn't just cheat on you, so I suggested this, the open relationship. It was the only way I could pursue her without being the bad guy. The pieces clicked into place, sharp and painful. The research, the smooth answers. The "it's not about you" speech. The one crucial rule, don't talk about it. He hadn't been building a fortress to protect our relationship. He'd been building a blind to hide his hunt. He wanted to see if it would work with her, I said aloud, the realization dawning on me, so he could ultimately leave me for her. He winced, hearing his plans spoken in my voice. I don't know, maybe. So what happened, Alex? I asked, a strange, morbid curiosity taking over. What happened with Chloe? He looked down at his feet. The silence that followed was more damning than any admission. She misread the whole thing, he mumbled, his face turning a deep, humiliated crimson. I asked her out to a date, a nice dinner. She thought it was a work lunch. She spent the entire time talking about quarterly projections. When I tried to, she laughed. She said she thought of me as a great manager. I felt a hysterical laugh bubble in my throat. I swallowed it. So she didn't want you, I stated. No, and it seems like. I looked at his desperate, angry face, the face of a man who had just seen my phone, full of successful dates and compliments and connections. No one else did either, he flinched. That was the bullseye. In the last 6 months, Alex, how many women have you slept with? He remained silent. How many dates have you been on? A few, he snapped, defensive. They were rough. These apps are, they're not. It's not easy. The picture was complete. He had engineered this entire drama, risked our 3-year healthy relationship, all to pursue a younger colleague who saw him as a boss. He had failed. And in the meantime, I, the woman he had so little respect for that he'd used her as a backup plan, had effortlessly succeeded at the very game he'd invented. His rage wasn't jealousy. It was pure, unadulterated humiliation. He wasn't mad that I had broken the rules. He was furious that I had won. I looked at him, the man I had loved, the man I had trusted, and I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt more than anything utterly and profoundly embarrassed for him. His humiliation curdled back into rage. It was all he had left. Well, it's over, he snarled, pushing himself off the counter. He was trying to reclaim his power to become the man in charge again. What's over? I asked, my voice still quiet. The open thing, it's done. It was a mistake. We are closing the relationship right now. Instantly, he said it like a king signing a decree, as if the words themselves could rewind time, erase his failure, and stuff me back into the box he'd kept me in. He was demanding that I delete my apps, block Ben and Mark, and return to being his quiet, stable, backup girlfriend, now that his first choice had rejected him. He was demanding I go back to being the placeholder. I looked at my shattered phone on his floor. I looked at his trembling, pathetic face. I thought of the past 6 months, the fun I'd had, the respectful, kind men I'd met, the confidence I'd rediscovered. I thought about the 8 years of peace I'd built before him. My revenge wasn't to scream or to throw things. My resolution wasn't to list his every failing, though the list was now remarkably long. My resolution was simple. No, I said. He blinked. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, I don't think we're doing that. This isn't a negotiation, he shouted. I'm telling you it's over. I know it is, I said. I bent down and picked up the pieces of my phone. The screen was black. I think maybe we should just end things, Alex, or at least I'm taking a break, a permanent one from you. The color drained from his face. This was not in his script. He was supposed to be the one to leave me. I was the safety net. The net wasn't supposed to just get up and walk away. End things, he sputtered. You're breaking up with me. After what I've been doing, I was playing by the rules, Alex, the rules you wrote. The only difference is you wrote them to cheat and I followed them to be honest. Turns out honesty works better. He called me names, the names that weak, terrified men always call women who they can no longer control. The names that are meant to cut, to shame, to wound. They bounced off me. How could he possibly hurt me now? He had just shown me in excruciating detail that his entire character was a lie. He wasn't the stable, confident man I'd fallen for. He was a cowardly boy with a fragile ego, willing to burn down a 3-year relationship for a chance with someone new, and then furious when his backup plan developed a mind of its own. I didn't say another word. I walked to the entryway, found my purse, and slipped on my shoes. You can't just leave, he yelled, following me. We have to talk about this. I made a mistake. I love you. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. No, you don't, I said, looking back at him one last time. You just hate to lose. I opened the door, walked out, and closed it quietly behind me. I walked home. It was a cool night. The city air felt clean, sharp. My shattered phone was a dead, heavy weight in my purse. And then the buzzing started. Buzz, 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 even broken, the phone was alive. Alex, he was blowing it up, text messages. Phone calls, the frantic digital screams of a man who had just lost control. I didn't stop, I just kept walking. I thought about my 8-year garden of solitude. I thought about how I had foolishly let this man convince me that his harbor was safer. I saw it all clearly now. The relationship hadn't been healthy, it had just been dormant. Alex hadn't been stable, he'd just been content. The moment he wanted something he couldn't have, he was willing to light the whole thing on fire. The open relationship hadn't broken us. It had simply revealed us. It revealed him as a manipulative, insecure hypocrite who saw me as a comfortable piece of furniture. And it had revealed me as a woman who, it turned out, was still the same independent, capable, and desirable person she had been for those 8 years. I had bent to his request not from weakness but from a willingness to trust. And when that trust was violated, I didn't shatter, I just left. When I got to my apartment, my sanctuary, my home, the buzzing in my purse was still going, a relentless, pathetic vibration. I took the dead phone out, walked to my kitchen, and dropped it into the trash can. I went to my balcony, poured a glass of wine, and sat down. The silence of my home was absolute. It was the same peace I had known for 8 years. It wasn't lonely, it was the sound of my life finally mine again. Alex hadn't wanted to open our relationship, he just wanted to open a door for himself while locking mine behind me. He forgot that I was the one who had built the house, and I was the only one who held the key.